Well, good evening. This is Thursday evening devotions from around the kitchen table. We welcome you. We're glad you're just tuning in and viewing, and we've been talking about since Lent, or especially since Easter and the resurrection, about how Jesus revealed himself to his followers when he appeared before them. Many of them didn't recognize him, and somehow or another he was able to open their eyes, and through different situations they recognized him through what he did. Now the story that we're looking at tonight comes from John's Gospel, chapter 21, verses 17 through 19, where Jesus both redeems Peter and he reconciles or reinstates Peter back into the relationship with him, or back into relationship with God. After Jesus appeared to them the last time, these disciples, 7 of them, returned to the Sea of Galilee. Before they followed Jesus for 3 years, they were fishermen. That's how they made their living. And so they returned, 7 of them did, to the Sea of Galilee. And one night they were kind of bored, I would say, and decided that they were going to go fishing. They were going to go back out and do what they did before they followed Jesus for those 3 years. And so they went down to the boat and got in the boat one night, and they went out fishing. They fished all night long, casting their nets down on one side of the boat. They caught absolutely nothing. As dawn was approaching, they began getting close to shore. We're told that they were about 100 yards away from the shore, and they saw a man standing on shore, and he yelled out to them, "Have you caught any fish?" And they yelled, "No, we don't have any fish." Then he said, this man on the shore, "Let down your net on the other side of the boat, and you'll catch some, you'll find some." Now, how would that set with you? Here are the fishermen. They knew all about fishing. They knew how to catch fish. That's what they did for a living. And here's this man on the shore saying, "You're doing it all wrong. It's time to try something different. Do something different. Instead of continuing to do the same old thing by letting your net down on that one side of the boat, do something different." Einstein said that's a kind of the classic definition of insanity, is continuing to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. But yet that's what the disciples are doing. And Jesus, they didn't recognize that it was Jesus on the seashore, is saying, "Stop letting your net down on that side of the boat and let it down on the other side of the boat, and you'll catch some." What would you say to that man? Get out of here. We know what we're doing. We never done it that way before. That's not how we do things here. We're not told that they said any of those things, other than they did what the man on the shore did, was to let down their nets. And when they did, they caught so many fish just by doing something different, by doing something someone else suggested to them. They caught so many fish that they were unable to haul in the catch of fish that were in their nets. It was just too heavy. I think it totaled something like 153 fish in all, which has a symbolic meaning. I'm not going to get into that tonight. And then John realized that it was Jesus on the shore, and he said so to Peter, that, "Hey Peter, that's Jesus up there on the seashore. Who else could tell us to do such a thing and have this miraculous catch of fish happen?" And upon realizing that it was Jesus on the shore, Peter took off his clothes and jumped in the water and swam to the shore to meet Jesus there. And the other disciples followed him in the boat, dragging along this large catch of fish. And when they landed, they saw that Jesus had a fire of burning coals with some fish cooking on it. And no one dared ask Jesus anything as to who he was, because they knew that it was him. And he said, come and have some breakfast. Bring some of the fish with you. Let's eat breakfast. And so they began eating some of the fish, and we're told that Jesus gave them some bread too. There's that word bread again. Think about bread when Jesus had his hands on bread. Think about the miraculous things that happened. Just in reflection, think about when he broke the bread. They fed 4,000, then and again, and another time they fed 5,000. And then there was the Last Supper that had taken place just shortly before this scene around the Sea of Galilee, where at the Last Supper Jesus took bread and blessed it and broke it and said, this is my body given for you. Take and eat this in remembrance of me. And they were blessed for the rest of their lives here on this earth, beyond all measure, even though it may not have seemed like it at the time. And now here it is again. Jesus is giving them bread again. And upon the breaking of the bread at this, or the giving of the bread at this meal, then he's really commissioning them to go off and do their ministry. He's reinstating them after what they did to them, or what they did to him, and he's redeeming them as well as reinstating them. Do you find it strange? Oh, by the way, this is the third time that Jesus has appeared to them since his resurrection. Do you find it strange that Jesus would want to hang out with these men again after all that had happened to him? Have you ever been betrayed or stabbed in the back by someone? It hurts, doesn't it? Are you able to forgive them? Are you able to be buddies with them again? Are you able to have a relationship with them again? When someone violates the confidence and the trust that you put in them, are you able to be close with them once again? You know, the betrayer is always someone close to you, someone you cared a lot about, someone you put trust and confidence in, a close friend that you did a lot of things with, that you broke bread with, that you fellowshiped with, that you laughed together with, and did other things with. Or oftentimes it's a family member who you loved and cared for it, and you catered to them, and you tried to supply all their needs as you showed them the love that you had for them. It's hard, isn't it, to get back together and to restore and reinstate them in the relationship that you had once again. Because it's hard to trust them again. It is for us. When one is betrayed, it causes division and broken relationships. And it just makes it harder to put your faith and trust in others. Doesn't it? Well, Jesus was betrayed by a close friend, someone in his inner circle, someone he trusted and broke bread with and laughed together with and fellowshiped with and taught and traveled from city to city and worshipped with them. Judas was in his inner circle. Judas was his betrayer. And Jesus cared for Judas, even though he knew that Judas was the one who was going to betray him. Now, Judas wasn't the only one that betrayed Jesus or deserted Jesus or hurt Jesus. In his hour of need, they all walked away. In his hour of need, they all deserted him and left him alone, except for John, and John was with him at the cross. And none of them, though, showed up for his burial or for his funeral. They just went away and left him hanging on the cross. Not a way to treat a close friend, is it? Not a way to treat someone you care about. Would you want to be around such people again after what they did to you? Would you think about seeing them as friends again, being with them, doing things with them again? And yet when Jesus rose from the dead, when he rose from the grave, he decided he wanted to be with those men, those people that he'd spent 3 years, the last 3 years of his life with. Those who deserted him. You know, they made one mistake. Made one mistake. For us, that would be the unpardonable sin. Most of us would have a terrible time in ever forgiving someone like that. But Jesus forgave them. He forgave them. We're told later on that when Peter deserted Jesus, he denied him 3 times. And so it's here, after this meal is served and the bread distributed, that Peter both redeems, or that Jesus both redeems Peter and reinstates him. 3 times Jesus asked Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" And by the 3rd time, Peter's heart was crushed. And yet, Jesus reinstates Peter into fellowship and relationship with God, with him, as the one on whom his church would be built. We wondered how Jesus could ever forgive such people as those, and then the words of Jesus come to mind in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 18, verses 21 and 22, where Peter asked Jesus, "How many times must I forgive my brother? 7 times, as is required by the law?" And then Peter thought he was being very generous by saying 7 times. And Jesus answered him, "Not just 7 times, but 7 times 70. Jesus meant this as an infinite number, a number with no end. He says, forgive as many times as is necessary, as is needed. Forgive as God has forgiven you. Forgive as I have forgiven you. And then there are the words of Jesus from John's Gospel, chapter 3, verse 17. The Son of Man did not come into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Jesus offers us all forgiveness, salvation, and life, eternal life, both now and forevermore. You think about that and have a blessed week. Okay.